Have you ever wondered if compound lifts are better than machines and cables at boosting testosterone and building muscle? When I first started lifting 15 years ago, age 16 in my local leisure centre gym, that question kept on going on and on in my head. And that was because a couple of my close mates and training partners at the time kept banging on about compound lifts like the squat, bench and deadlift, and they kept telling me how heavy compound lifts were better than light movements or machine exercises at building muscle. And that was because they'd read a few articles in fitness magazines that compound lifts boosted testosterone and growth hormone post-exercise, which would lead to more gains. And like any newbie, I took my friend's advice as gospel. So for years, I genuinely believed that the reason my style of training was so effective was because my training program was based around compound lifts, which meant that I was boosting my testosterone and getting more gains. Now, it's not that myself or my mates were wrong about compound lifts boosting testosterone, because I'm going to show you a little later on that compound lifts, they do actually boost testosterone, but not in the way that most people think. And what was driving my gains was a far more powerful muscle building principle than the post-training testosterone spikes, which I'm going to get onto in a second. But the sad reality is that most guys miss out on this crucial missing piece of the puzzle when it comes to building muscle. So that means that they make absolutely no gains when they train, which is why in this video, I'm going to lay out the principle for you so you can stop wasting time following inefficient training methods like I did. But before I show you the muscle building principle though, I need to just clarify something really quickly. Now, it's no secret that lifting heavy through compound lifts increases the concentration of hormones like testosterone, growth hormone, and IGF-1 in the body. And research from the 1990s and early 2000s show us that the more muscle that's involved in an exercise, the more testosterone, growth hormone, and IGF-1 spike that a person will get post-workout. But the post-exercise increase from these hormones, they just can't be used as proxy markers for building muscle potential in human beings. And that's because despite the fact that testosterone does increase with heavy loads that hit multiple muscle groups like the squat, bench, and deadlift do, these hormones just simply spiked up and then came back down after an hour. And, this small spike in testosterone, it's just not enough to have a long-lasting effect on muscle gains. And in fact, I actually did a video highlighting whether doubling of testosterone would lead to more gains or not. I'll link that video at the end of this video. So if it wasn't the post-exercise testosterone and growth hormone spike that was driving my gains when I first started lifting, then what was? See, when it comes to building muscle, based on the current literature, evidence, and countless years of humans self-experimenting with different training techniques and methods, there are actually 4 principles, or from what we know of, that drive muscle growth. The amount of weight we lift over a specific time frame, also known as total volume or progressive overload. How hard our muscles have to work to lift a weight, also known as mechanical tension. How much blood and fatigue our muscles accumulate, and that's also known as metabolic stress or the pump. And how much, when, and what food we eat that helps support the muscle building process, and this is also known as a calorie surplus. Now, for the purpose of this video, I'm going to focus on one single most important principle that often goes unnoticed for skinny fat guys, but it's the easiest to fix. And if you want me to cover the other 3 principles, just let me know in the comments and I'll make a video on them. So the principle that I want to focus on is mechanical tension, which is just a really fancy word for how hard our muscles have to work to lift a weight. And the reason why I want to highlight this is because whenever a skinny fat guy starts working with me with my 1-to-1 skinny fat awakening program, adamant that he just can't build muscle, when I get him to send across videos of himself training, he just simply isn't training hard enough for muscle to grow in the first place. Now, naturally, if you tell a man, right, that he just isn't training hard enough, his ego is going to be like, no, stuff you, Dan, I'm training hard, watch me. And he'll just go into the gym the next day, load the squat, bench, and deadlift up with even more weight and put himself in compromising positions. Being a beginner and skinny fat, most have no idea how to lift properly. Their core and stabilizing muscles are undertrained, which means that they put themselves in all sorts of funky positions when they just start adding more weight to the barbell. They either end up hurting themselves or picking up small niggly injuries, which wreck their motivation to want to keep training. And that's why, along with the fact that compound lifts don't boost testosterone to any useful measure, in my opinion, a terrible choice of exercise for skinny fat guys. And that's why I'm a huge fan of machines, cables, and dumbbells. And that's why they're my go-to exercises for my skinny fat guys when they start working with me. And that's because they don't have to spend months practicing their technique in a squat, bench, and deadlift. You know, for context, these lifts are very, very highly technical lifts. And even now, after 15 years of training, I'm still tweaking and working on my technique with these lifts. Now, that's not to say that you should never squat, bench, and deadlift. But if you want gains out of the block as soon as you start the gym and make the most of your newbie gains that most skinny fat guys can experience, newbie gains, by the way, are when you'll get the best muscle building results in your lifting career, which can last anywhere between about 3 to 9 months. And you're going to be able to make the most of these newbie gains by absolutely fucking hammering yourself and training near failure with machines, cables, and dumbbells to apply the principle of mechanical tension in comparison to wasting so many months trying to perfect your squat, bench, and deadlift. And a simple way to know if you're training hard enough for muscle to grow is to monitor the following. Make sure that you're looking at your facial expressions. If you're not kind of gritting your teeth, pulling ugly faces in the last few reps, you're probably not training hard enough. If your last rep is the same speed as your first rep, you probably haven't picked a challenging enough weight. For muscle to grow, there should be a clear breakdown in speed between your first rep and your last rep. And lastly, if you've really pushed yourself, your heart rate should go up a little bit, and depending on your fitness levels, you should be feeling like you're having to take heavier breaths towards the last few reps. At the end of the day, if none of what I just mentioned is happening to you, you're probably not training hard enough, and that's why you're not making gains. Now, earlier I said I had a video on how much testosterone you should have by age, and here it is. Thanks for your time and attention.